All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. I want to talk about sound because I feel there is something extremely powerful about going to the extremes of our wellness practices. And I find that very often we are stuck into a one direction. And I think there is I see a lot of people being very proud of how they fast in the group. For me, it's as important to feast as it is important to fast. And unfortunately, we live in a world where there is a narrative or one way to go about it. But going to the extreme of our physiology, uh, whatever element we approach is really embracing the human experience. And so I just feasted very, very clearly, and I am recovering from that feast. And I'm very happy that we're having an expert on fasting coming and talking to us about it because I think I would have talked a lot of shit and a lot of nonsense about fasting. So I don't want to be misguiding people into really unhealthy practices when it comes to that. So very happy for my friend Dave to come. Once he has shared, I'll share my way I approach it, which is unconventional, like a lot of things I do. But I'd rather have someone come with a scientific background and approach to it first. Okay, so that's what inspired me to bring out the topic of sound and specifically voice, because I feel there is a lot out there when it comes to sound healing and resonance, and we have a lot of that, but I don't see that much. Or maybe I want to share my perspective when it comes to expressing ourselves through our voice. I think, unfortunately, we've been either suppressed or we've suppressed ourselves, and often it comes in the fact that we don't allow ourselves to speak up, to speak our truth, or to express our truth. We were talking yesterday about the importance of expressing anger, and I was taking the example of animals growling to set boundaries. And I love Gabor Mate's books on toxic culture, and when he talks about the fact that developing healthy boundaries and a good relation to boundaries is exactly the same as nourishing our immune system. Our immune system is kind of our defense mechanism from the outside world. The same way when we set boundaries, we said we don't let certain energies in. And unfortunately, we have often been taught to not set healthy boundaries. And that's why we have a struggling relationship with anger, which we often associated with an energy and a vibration and an emotion that is not welcome. And often it's what often comes with anger is shame and guilt. And those are two really big emotions that are very low in terms of vibration that really affect our health a lot. So not only we are not feel anger, but whenever we feel, we allow ourselves to feel it, then shame and guilt comes. Another thing that where we experience a lot of shame and guilt is sex. It's often associated with it. In our childhood, we have suppressed our relation to sexuality. You know, if you're I don't know, a 3-year-old, 4-year-old that likes to be naked, the parents will say, no, no, you need to cover yourself. This is not appropriate. And you see, you know, a 4-year-old girl with a bikini and things like that. So we've been really, it's been ingrained in us that, you know, our body is something that we should cover, that we should be ashamed of. And that no wonder we carry so much body shame, and so many girls and women struggle with body image. And then everybody's wondering, oh, I wonder why she's feeling like that, because she is very pretty. And I really believe that it comes from the culture, the environment, but the parents have a big responsibility when it comes to body shaming, and it's done with the best intention. And to the topic of today, you know, there is something about, and I'm French, there is something about French children that people are very proud of. They behave very well. you go to a restaurant and you see French children. They are sitting, they are quiet, they are not obnoxious like Americans or Australian kids. And the French are very proud of that. There is something about, oh, look at these well-behaved children. And I think that's really that they have been, we as French, but a lot of people can for sure resonate with that. We've been raised, we've been conditioned, but this is not how you teach people how to express themselves. We've been taught to actually not express ourselves. Like our voice is our opinion, our voices are not welcome. And very often, a lot of people, they've been shut down whenever they express themselves. And in one way or another, like for me now, I'm with my parents and I'm sad and excited at the same time that it's the last day because I can really feel a lot of old stuff coming up, and my parents have not done any work on themselves. So it's great because I get to experience as an adult was what the 5-year-old Alex experienced as a kid. Like, I'm going to Rome tomorrow, and I tell my parents I'm very excited to go to Rome. And here comes a half an hour lecture on the best museums to experience in Rome and and then the history of the painters. Do I really care? Did he ask if I wanted to hear about it? Was there an exchange? Was there an interest in what I wanted to do in Rome? No, and that's really what my childhood was all about, was with the best intention, someone who came and really lectured me all his life. Whereas, I wanted to share my excitement to go to Rome and to be there with my children. And instead of that, the exchange stopped. And I remember feeling that every time I came home, having learned something. And instead of, hearing the few words every child wants to hear, says, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm proud of you. I'm happy you learned this. Tell me more. I've been lectured with the best intentions, so I know more, I become smarter, whatever you want to hear. And also been raised to be well behaved in a restaurant, which basically means be quiet. Uh, don't express yourself. It's a space where adults are interacting and children are welcome to speak when they are asked to speak. And very often in my culture and the way I was raised was around like making some kind of demonstration of either my knowledge or whatever could be impressing people. And that's the kind of part of me that was welcome in the conversation when other adults were around. So I did feel the pressure all my life of being the smart one in community, number one. And then I felt I experienced a huge rejection of culture, of anything intellectual, because I've been so groomed into that I just blocked it. And it had the counter effect on me of I really don't care about a lot of things. And I'm no longer ashamed, but I'm almost sad that I don't have that curiosity about museums and culture and painters. But there is so much behind that for me that I have shut down part of what could be interesting for me to experience in life. And that's where I think that as much as we talk about meditation and the virtue of silence, I think there is something to talk about the virtue of expressing ourselves through our voice and making sounds. Um, I know that, for instance, to talk completely about another context, uh, let's talk about sex. Uh, Very few men allow themselves to express themselves through sex because they just don't know how to do it. They've been associating expressing emotions and feelings and making sounds in the context of lovemaking as something weak, as hiding vulnerability. That's or if you make sound, it needs to be like, porn movies kind of sounds, which are often faked and with the intention of creating an effect. So it's really not authentic or genuine. It's just with the effect of creating some kind of arousal for the partner. So it's again really focused on the other person and the effect on the other person. But very few men are taught or focus on experiencing their own pleasure, and many men, and I think it's a problem in our culture, is we are always focused on pleasing others. And I think that's true for men and women. It says, okay, in the context of lovemaking, if my partner is satisfied, then my job as a partner, again, female or male, heterosexual, homosexual, doesn't matter, is accomplished. I've done my job. My partner is satisfied. And we've just lost the most important part, which is our own experience. And as everything, and like everything, I do believe that the antidote to that is practice. And I really invite people in this group to make sound through the voice part of their daily routine and bring the voice into your practices. That can be through breath work, that could be through singing mantras. It could be through, having primal screaming if you're in water, but practices that consciously bring the liberation of the voice. And the more I make it a practice, the more this moves from a conscious practice to an unconscious practice, which means that when I will feel that there is a tension in my body, then I will immediately release it. So, my kids are used to it, but I drove for way too many hours, and I asked for their permission to express myself while I was driving and scream. And actually, so I did. They were not very happy about it. They increased the volume on their own headsets, and I let go crazily in the car because my whole body felt constricted, and then I cried for no reason. I just had, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours of tension, of being focused on being in the range, nothing to do with, forget childhood trauma or I'm just stuck in a car, focused on the outside world and being really uh, focused and concentrated, and it creates a lot of tension in my body. And giving myself permission to have a strong release, then all of a sudden, I had a full release. And what was interesting is when I started crying, then everybody started laughing. And before you know it, for 5 minutes, we were having a laughter in the car. And then there was a place where I could stop, like a few kilometers after. We stopped the car and we had an incredible shaking and dancing on the side of the road and an incredible release. And then boom, we had a proper break. And I want to that's the parenting part that I find is important. It's like I really want my children to witness me when I am feeling these tensions in my body, and for them to witness me having a release, rather than hide and build up and pretend and stay composed and demonstrate that, oh no, I don't want to show some kind of a vulnerability or weakness, because that's not the good model. I need to be strong, and we need to be composed. And I think this kind of way of raising humans was very valid, because for so many years and decades and centuries, we were living in an environment which was very hostile, with a lot of wars, and we needed to raise warriors. And that's why there was a lot of education that was done intentionally, consciously, to raise strong men that can bypass their emotions because, well, you need to kill, you need to fight, you need to not feel what's going on in order to do things that are potentially really challenging. And there is a lot of narratives around, the woman supporting the strong man and whether it's in movies and music and pop culture. And maybe that was needed for society when we were fighting against our neighbors and we needed our men to be strong and fighting and protecting the kingdom. But nowadays, it's not really very useful, and it's backlashing where all of a sudden you have humans who are just disconnected completely from themselves and who are raising kids who are disconnected from themselves. Yet we know intuitively that sounds brings release. Like how do you laugh? Again, look on the internet for the benefits of mouth breathing. I already mentioned that. You won't find a single video. On YouTube, type benefits of mouth breathing. You won't find a single video. Every video will tell you the benefits of nose breathing and how nose breathing is the alpha and omega of breath work from physiological, biological perspective. I get it. But how do you laugh? You don't laugh through your nose. How do you cry? You don't cry through your nose. How do you stop an emotion? You shut your mouth. How do you have an orgasm? All this is through the mouth and with sounds. So I think we can reverse engineer it. And instead of feeling the emotion and having the emotion be manifested with sounds, whatever they are, the beauty is we can do it the other way around and consciously bring sounds, and those sounds could be extremely healing. So when I start, let's say I have sexual trauma and I'm disconnected from pleasure and I associated pleasure with shame and guilt, then a practice of, again, we're talking in an environment that feels safe. So if it's alone in your room, that's what it is. If you live in a city and you are, conscious of the sounds, then go in the forest. An environment that feels safe, whatever safety means to you, to allow yourself to make growling sexual sounds. None in the context of lovemaking, simply with the intention of bringing that energy and witnessing what comes up. And what could come is the release of an emotion. Often that could be the case. And that could be an orgasm. That could be crying. That could be laughing. But it's done consciously. And I think that's the key message. Says, I'm going to start making sounds and welcome sounds, and let's see what happens. And Nabil was in my teacher training. We have witnessed over and over, and I'm sure you've also, of course, all of us have experienced that, when an emotion is being expressed through the mirroring brain, everybody's giving themselves permission to access the same emotion. Someone starts crying, everybody starts crying. Someone starts laughing, everybody starts laughing. So there is something not only as I prefer the word integration than healing, but let's say healing practice of making sounds, but there is a responsibility. And I can tell you that every time I'm expressing myself, whether I'm in the street after a drive, I'm famous in the south of Bali because whenever I drive from Ubud, which is a half an hour when you avoid chicken and children, I park my scooter on the side of the road, I put some techno music on, and I start releasing with sounds on the exhale very, very, very vocally, very loud. And every time I do that, and every time I express myself in public, I am met with looks of appreciation. And people are actually saying, wow, that looks like something that is great. And that's very much something that comes from their intuition. We all have it. We just, that must feel good. but most people don't allow themselves because of, society's stupid codes. That's why, like nobody can dance on the dance floor until everybody's drunk at 2 a.m. and the dance floor is full of people. But alone at 10 a.m. in the street, that's for crazy people. Yeah. But it feels good. And the same way when we reconnect to voice and sounds, it's an incredible release. And the science is also quite clear on that. When the exhale and making sounds activates the vagus nerve, so it's really the fast track to relaxing the nervous system. And it's pretty established that the most powerful way to breathe in order to relax is to do a double inhale through the nose and a vocal exhale through the mouth. Ah, ah. Yeah, and that's been studied. So we have data and we have information, yet this is not something that we do. And you know that, you can witness someone having a bit of a stressful moment. When that moment is going to be released, it's going to be often through vocalization through the mouth with a long exhale. Yeah? And there is all the practices of humming, uh, chanting, that are all, uh, you know, incredible ways of connecting to something deeper, but also very relaxing. Everybody loves to go to a karaoke. You know, there is something about being together, the togetherness, but there is something about prolonging the exhale with restricting the airway through sounds. Yeah, and that's very, very powerful. So I'll come up with some videos of and some inspiration for people to experience release in. You know what? I was thinking of a practice to guide, but I would love for each of you to feel into what kind of energy they feel they need. A lot of men, for instance, who are disconnected sexually, they love to feel into their warrior and making warrior sounds, like Maori, or very, of course, without using Maori, which is, sacred practices, but some kind of a warrior sounds. There's something powerful. Or for a woman disconnected from her goddess energy, and same for men. But allow ourselves to feel what kind of energy am I missing, and exploring that. So I'll suggest some videos, some guidelines, and maybe I'll offer some guidance according to the reaction to that video and what people are asking. Happily bring that more in